Welcome to Mary McCorvey Experience Over Expectations podcast, which you can find on YouTube, Substack, and any place you find your podcasts. Be sure to subscribe today.
Hello, this is Experience Over Expectation. I'm Mary McCorvey. This is a place where we encourage you to let go of the grand plan and live on your terms. Today, I have as my guest Jeff George, who is a managing director and wealth management advisor at Merrill Lynch Wealth Management. He brings over 18 years of experience helping individuals, families, and institutions navigate the complex world of finance with clarity and purpose. But before his career in wealth management, Jeff served as a Medevac company commander in the Army's 101st Airborne Division during Operation Iraqi Freedom. He earned the Bronze Star and multiple commendations for leadership and service. He's also a very, very good friend of mine. I'll just throw that in there. His path from the battlefield to the boardroom reflects a rare combination of precision, discipline, and heart. Today, his work goes beyond managing wealth. It's about stewardship, about legacy, and the quiet art of making decisions that outlast us. Thanks so much for joining me today, Jeff.
Oh, thank you, Mary. Thanks for the opportunity to share some life lessons and for the warm introduction.
Yes, absolutely. And one of the things that you and I have had discussions about, and the reason why I wanted you to join us here today, is because we really have talked about the importance of trust and what trust means between in your current role, for example, between you and your clients, but also between you and your troops on the battlefield. So I'd love to know a little bit more about what you and I have discussed, because I want to share it with folks, about how you started out building trust as a company commander on the battlefield.
Yeah. Again, thanks. I think nothing happens without trust, right? We can't follow leaders no matter what the task if we really don't trust them. And lots of theories around, sort of building the why and some of those things. But I think as a leader, the way that I want to most build trust is through two things. One is listening, and second is taking action. I think if I had a trust equation, it would say something like trust equals listening plus action. And the listening shows that I respect you, that I want to understand your point of view. And the action shows some reliability that I'm going to do, what I said I was going to do. And so that gives us this sort of feedback loop of credibility. That I listen to you, I hear what you told me, and the things that are important to you. I tell you I'm going to do something. And those two things together, then I build a trust bond with you. So whether it was troops that wanted to tell me, hey, sir, there's this or that problem, and I told them back that, yes, okay, I hear you, I understand what you're saying, or let me clarify and make sure I understand, that builds a trust. And then if I say to someone, I'll be here at this time, and I'd be there at that time. And I built that trust that they know I'm a person who does what I said I was going to do.
Well, that's really quite something in the midst of bullets flying.
Yeah.
You had to ask your troops to do some difficult things, and they had to trust you in order for them to just go in and lay their lives on the line, helping others.
Yeah, well, the military is full of dangerous stuff, whether you're in a combat zone or not. As a medevac pilot with night vision goggles on in bad weather, with a patient in the back of a helicopter, there's always a lot of intensity and stress in those situations. And there's no better place to build those sort of leadership moments than in those kinds of stressful moments. And I think the military just does an amazing job of building leaders. They always have, they always will. And part of that's because of the intensity of what happens in the military. So I certainly have had those experiences, whether it was peacetime, but in a medevac mission, a real mission, no different than a medevac helicopter, not military, or in combat. Yeah. Troops and some tough orders to carry out in areas that are dangerous. And there's enemy around us. So I was in the initial push into Iraq in 2003. Operation Iraqi Freedom Part 1. And we crossed the berm in full gear, thinking that we were going to be chemically attacked. And that's some scary moments to ask troops to, get in the vehicle and drive across the desert, expecting that, we would see some sort of chemical response from Saddam Hussein. The soldiers have to trust leaders in those moments. And they did. And they do every day.
Well, tell us about the meaning of service. So you made the decision to go into the Army as you came out of college, and that was a life-changing moment for you. It was also something, as I understand it from you, it really integrated that sense of service and higher purpose. And what was it that instigated you to go into civilian life after such a warm and healthy and invigorating experience in Iraq?
Yeah. Yeah, for me, my father served in the military. He also served community. He was a soccer coach and president of the soccer league. And I saw my parents serve others. They were the house that had the parties, right, and did things. And I really believe my heart of service, started very early then. I like to say to my boys now, I have three boys, three adult boys, that life is about serving Christ, serving country, serving companions, and serving community. And we really should strive every day to do those things. We are in a world where we rely on others every day. The way society works now, really can't do much of anything on our own. And I think serving the people around you, is important. And serving country is important. Serving community is important. These are all ways we can do things. And my father was a good example of that. So when I was graduating high school, I committed to ROTC and had an ROTC scholarship to go to college, and really wanted to serve in the military, just like my father did, and enjoyed that part of life, and really have amazingly good memories and still great friends who I travel with and see, 20 years later, that are nothing like me, that didn't grow up in rural South Jersey. But, you form this bond, that the military does, that's just very different. But I came into the Army under the Be All You Can Be recruiting campaign. And I like to say I had been all I could been. I was twice a company commander, once in combat. I got to fly helicopters. I did just a lot of really neat, fun stuff that most people will never get to do, and in a very Forrest Gump-like way. And I felt pretty fulfilled that I had served and done that part of my life that I needed to do. We had our first son at that time, he was turning 3, and I hadn't seen him on any of his birthdays. I had made one of my 7 anniversaries at that point, and sort of decided that the Medevac world, there wasn't a lot of opportunity to continue to be a Medevac pilot and move kind of up the chain of command, traditionally the way officers did. And so I really felt like I had been all I could been, and it was time to move on. I was really lucky to find a career that still was about serving others, and feels very fulfilling to me that I'm in the people helping business. We help people every day around complex tasks that are difficult, and there are life decisions that they're maybe not doing every day, right? So most people don't follow markets every day and follow what's going on in the tax world and the estate planning world and all those things. And so we're able to give people advice around complex subjects, around emotional subjects. Like money fights are the number one cause of divorce. And so I feel like we're saving marriages, to some degree. They're certainly the cause of stress in people's life that are thinking about retirement. We want to help with those decisions. There's certainly people who have built abundant wealth, and most people don't understand that those folks who you would think have mega money, they are stressed about dollars. And it's a different stress than somebody who's worried about, do they have enough money to put their kids through college? But people with large amounts of money also have anxiety around money. Like, are they doing the right thing for their children? Are they doing the right thing charitably? Are they doing the right things for tax purposes? and they cannot talk about that with anybody.
Mhm.
So it's
It's
easy to
another,
Facebook and complain, the price of eggs went up, but it's hard to go on
yeah.
Facebook and complain about the tax movements. So
Yeah, very true. Very true. And I know that you work with people of many different levels of financial situations. And abundance of wealth, abundance of anything always brings just a little bit of what's all this about?
yeah,
Whereas, a lack of brings other types of problems. So you decided that you were going to go into finance and go into wealth management. And how did you take both the elements of service as well as the leadership lessons that you learned in the military into finance?
that's a great question. I think number one, the military is about process, about SOPs, right? Standing operating procedures. And we learned from that in the military that helps prevent mistakes. It helps you forgetting something, checklists as a pilot. Pilots who have thousands of flight hours pull out a checklist before they start a helicopter or airplane, and they go through that checklist every single time. And we learned that repetition and those careful things can prevent problems. So I think process is a big part of what I do today with folks and staying process oriented. I think the leadership aspects, and I'll circle back to trust. The way you build trust as a leader is the same we build trust with a new family that we're helping them with their wealth management needs. Well, I'll go back to that, trust equals listening plus action. I like to say, you said, I said.
Mhm.
That first, I want to ask you some questions and I want to understand you. I want to hear, I want to listen. And my second part of you said is repeating that back to you. It's you said, I heard. You would tell me some things, and I would say, Mary, I heard you say that it was really important for you to pay for your grandkids' education because the stress you felt as a parent paying for your kids' education. Did I get that right? And now you say, oh, Jeff understands me. He knows what's important to me. So you said, I heard. I'm telling you that I heard. You're feeling that I listened, building that trust again. And then I said, typically after you meet with somebody, you say, hey, I'm going to follow up. I'm going to send you this report on this, or I'm going to do this for you. I'm going to change your address or something. And so I said, I did. I need to say I'm going to do something. I need to do it and tell you, hey, Mary, I told you I was going to send you this research report attached, see page 13, whatever. And I think those are trust building moments that, is very similar again to what, we did in leadership in the military to, what we do now in serving people and continuing to build that trust loop through very simple things like that, just listening and doing what you said you were going to do. So I think that's part of it, learning those leadership things.
Well, that's a great framework that you just outlined, and it actually crosses over into other areas of life.
Yeah, I mean, relationships are about trust, right? So I think in any relationship, it doesn't have to be a business relationship. It could be with one of your children that they want to be heard, right? Kids don't want to just be talked to at any age, and they certainly don't with my young adult teenage. They believe they understand things a certain way, and I want to hear them say that. Say, okay, I think I understood you here. Let me make sure I got it, right? Now they feel good about that, and they can trust me in my next advice as opposed to what most of us do is just say, do it this way. This is the way you do it. And so, again, hearing folks in any relationship and making sure they understand that you heard them and built that continuity of trust. And then doing what you said you were going to do. There's nothing worse than if somebody says to you, hey, I'm going to send this to you on Friday. And by Friday afternoon, they didn't receive it. You got to continue to I said I did and complete that task.
I want to shift gears a little bit and ask you what, for the listeners and the viewers that are not into wealth management yet, right? They may have some needs, but they have not aligned with a wealth manager yet. What are the elements that they should be looking at in their personal and professional lives that will set them up for success when they ultimately do work with a wealth manager?
Yeah, I think, again, this would apply to almost anybody who gives advice, right? So we are in the advice giving business, and there needs to be this trust. And anytime when I am asking someone for advice or compensating someone for advice, I tell them, I want you to do what you would do to your brother, your father, your, uncle, whatever. I want you to treat me like that. Do unto me as you would do unto you. And that's how I want to be cared for in that. And so I would encourage most people to kind of come with a heart with that, is that the person you're dealing with in life and anything, you want to find somebody that you can trust and that will do their very best as if they were doing it for their own family member. And that's kind of what I ask back of a client, is to say, hey, come to me with this understanding that I'm going to treat you like you are my sister. And if that's not what you're looking for, then this is not a good fit. And so I think for the most part, I would say just go with that mindset that you want somebody to take care of you. The same way you would a doctor or a plumber, that you ask for that help, and expect that whoever that person is in whatever field they're in, that they have expertise and that they're going to continue to develop their expertise and treat you with that same heart, but treat themselves in their business with the heart of trying to always continually improve and be better.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question for you related to, you said that you give advice, which you obviously do, and many others, from the plumber to the architect to the doctor
Yeah.
to the lawyer. A lot of people give advice. What happens when, in your experience, what happens when a client does not take your advice and things go wrong?
Yeah, it happens in any, again, professional setting. I'm sure we all can think of someone in our life who doesn't necessarily take the doctor's advice. When the
Right.
doctor says, tell me what's wrong with you, and you say, well, my elbow really hurts, and they say, well, you should take this medication, and they go home and they go, I'm not taking that medication, or I'm not going to do, whatever physical therapy they recommend. And then inevitably they come back to the doctor and say, my elbow still hurts when I do this. And the doctor says, well, did you take that medication? They say, well, no. Did you do that exercise? I did them a little bit, but I didn't. It's like, what would you like me to tell you today? I'm going to tell you, take the medicine and do this exercise, right? And so in the wealth management field, it can be the same, that we give someone advice and for some reason they don't take that. Or, if it's on a small thing, that's okay, is to say, hey, I'm not really comfortable here. Let me do something a little different. I think that's me needing to listen more and say, well, maybe I didn't understand you. Let me back up and make sure I understand, because I don't want to give you advice that you're not comfortable with. So I first sort of take that to heart and say, is there something I missed? But if there isn't, and there is some sort of trust gap or something where somebody can't take our advice, it's painful for a financial advisor, for a wealth manager, because and 9 times out of 10, when someone doesn't take our advice, it doesn't go well. And then I feel responsible that I couldn't get them through whatever was keeping them from taking our advice. So again, I tend to look sort of more self-inward and say, geez, we had this investment advice or planning advice, and they wouldn't do it. And now they had a bad outcome. And I can't sleep at night because they had a bad outcome, because I couldn't lead them to the right outcome. Thinking about a couple instances where that's happened to us, where we've recommended like a long-term care insurance policy. And long-term care insurance is not a fun subject to talk about. It's not fun to talk about needing a caregiver. It's expensive. It's an expensive insurance product. And And there's not a lot of fun with that, right? If you've bought car insurance, it's similar. It's not really fun to buy car insurance. And, we'll recommend that to some people, not everybody. It's not right for everybody. And we had an incident where then somebody over and over and over again showed us an insurance policy a life insurance policy that they should have come out of and transitioned to a long-term care insurance policy. And probably know where this is going, that they eventually then had a need for a long-term care assistance. And it's too late. It's too late to get a diagnosis. And I wear that now. I feel like we messed up and we could not convince someone to do the right thing. But it is it's more often than not, it's more painful for the advice giver. I think it's more painful for that doctor than that elbow probably hurts. I think that doctor can't stand that. And maybe different than the doctor, we are taught some amount of sales techniques. The doctors really aren't. And so maybe it's more painful for the doctor, but I don't know. It's not very fun. And I think if it happens over and over again, we will explain to a client that we're probably not a good fit. If you're not taking our advice, you should go somewhere where you're getting what you want. Everybody's talking about these days that we live in this society where we're constantly being fed information that we already know and that we already want, and we're in this feedback loop, and we're not being exposed to difference of opinions. So I think sometimes when I offer something to someone that is different than what is being constantly fed to them in social media or YouTube accounts or whatever, it's hard to hear advice that's against the grain of what you've been in that echo chamber in today's world. So we recognize that that's part of it, and just try to do the best we can to walk people through this process.
What are the final thoughts on trust that you have for us today?
Yeah, I would say trust is not built in a day. It's built every day, but it can be destroyed in a matter of seconds. And when it comes down to trust and to helping people make decisions, to be just very mindful of what a delicate instrument that trust really is. And then the second thing I'll just say is, remember, you said, I said. Second part, which is you said, I heard, I said, I did. And I think that's how we try to make it happen every day. And I hope that's helpful for others for building trust.
Well, I can imagine it will be. Thank you so much, Jeff, for joining us today. Really enjoyed this conversation. This is Experience Over Expectation. I'm Mary McCorvey. I encourage you to pick up the book, Experience Over Expectation, Let Go of the Plan, and Live on Your Terms. Thanks so much for watching and listening. Have a great day.
You've been listening to Mary McCorvey's Experience Over Expectations podcast. Be sure to subscribe today on YouTube and Substack, or listen wherever you find your podcasts. Thanks for tuning in.